Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today in this press conference, where we are going to speak on our road to Belém. Please mind it, we are not saying our road to COP30. And why? It's 32 years since Rio Declaration, and we are in the 29th COP. We are also on the verge of a tipping point. But are we responding appropriately? Are we not still delaying, distracting, and almost in a denial mode that the climate crisis is exacerbating? The UNFCCC is failing, forgetting that it's an agency of the United Nations. Our government are failing, ditching their own citizens who vote them to power and with definite mandate. Now, how long this can go on? We all have to survive. The planet has to survive. Our future generations have to survive, and survive with dignity. Our voices, our demand, our concerns are increasingly being ignored in this space. Communities on the top of bearing the brunt of climate crisis are facing increasing oppression on the ground. Any reference to human rights, rights of indigenous peoples, local communities, women, farmers, and youth are viciously deleted from the texts in the negotiating rooms. Any reference to real climate actions are blocked in these negotiating rooms. Peoples, their rights, livelihood, and survival do not matter to them anymore. Now, this cannot go on. This is the time, perhaps, that we all have to choose what do we want to do. What are the real actions that peoples, communities, women, indigenous peoples will have to take from now on? We need to strengthen our strategies. Many of us think that this is the time to assert our voices, amplify our concerns, and perhaps carve out our own spaces where we can mobilize ourselves, where we can talk about ourselves, where we can talk about climate and what is happening. So that's what we think, that let us talk about what we can do in Belém in 2025. And therefore, to speak and talk more on our road to Belém, we today have an esteemed panel, beginning with André Laretin from Friends of Siberian Forest, a member of Global Forest Coalition. We have Linda Gonzalez from Sensat Aguaviva, Colombia, member of Friends of the Earth. We have Maureen Santos from FACE, Brazil, member of Global Forest Coalition. And we have Nimo Basse from Health of the Mother Earth Foundation. So let us begin with André Laretin. And I am Shouporno Lahiri from Global Forest Coalition. Thank you.
Thank you, Suporna. The Global Forest Coalition and members and allies from Central Asia and the Caucasus yesterday issued the Baku Forest Declaration. Global Forest Coalition includes 136 members from 78 countries. This declaration urges a paradigm shift in climate negotiations to prioritize forest protection, indigenous rights, and climate justice. This landmark declaration calls on COP29's presidency and the parties to the Paris Agreement to address the devastating impacts of fires and deforestation, recognize the critical role of natural forests, and move beyond market-driven solutions to achieve sustainable climate action. The declaration that you can find in the website of Global Forest Coalition was signed and endorsed by more than 30 organizations from across the Caucasus and the globe, including groups from Georgia, Russia, Moldova, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and many other countries. It emphasizes the alarming impact of fires and deforestation on local ecosystems and biodiversity. In 2024 alone, forest fires across Russia destroyed over 7.7 million hectares. Such fires obliterate entire ecosystems, demonstrating the shortcomings of current climate policies that fail to protect forests from deforestation. Our coalition calls for the protection of indigenous peoples' rights and the recognition of their traditional knowledge in forest conservation, advocating for policies that go beyond merely seeing forests as carbon sinks. We can no longer ignore that forests and more than carbon stocks, they are homes, water reservoirs, and lifelines for millions, especially in regions like Central Asia and the Caucasus. Climate policies must focus on community-based, gender-just, and right-based solutions. In addition to reinforcing the call for equity and climate justice, the declaration emphasizes specific policy changes, including the cessation of market-based mechanisms like REDD+ and carbon trading. The statement urges increased support for alternatives that alleviate local communities' dependency on biomass, such as renewable energy sources and energy-efficient solutions under fair, just, and equitable transitions. The Baku Forest Declaration sends a strong message to the international community at COP29. Protecting our forests and empowering indigenous communities to participate in climate decision-making are indispensable to achieving climate stability. Among its recommendations, the declaration advocates for urgent regional cooperation to conserve floodplain river gallery forests, some of the world's most vulnerable ecosystems. It also suggests forming continental agreements to conserve forest belts critical for moisture regulation and climate resilience. With this declaration, our coalition calls on negotiators and governments to acknowledge the role of intact ecosystems and promote fair, inclusive, and sustainable climate action. The time to act is now. If we fail to protect our forests, we fail the planet and future generations. The next COP30 will be in Belém, Brazil. It will focus on forest protection. Global Forest Coalition has 30 active members in Latin America. Next year, they will prepare Belém Declaration that will focus on protection of Amazon and other forest types of Latin America. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. So the Baku Forest Declaration, I repeat, is available on the website of Global Forest Coalition. Next, Linda.
Hello, everyone. 1 year ago, when COP28 took place in Dubai, the agenda for the next COP on biodiversity, but climate change too, was announced as a result of advocacy work by Latin American countries, whose governments had been characterized by leading slightly more critical positions in international environment discussion space, such as the COPs, as here. As a result, the two most important COPs in the world were designated to take place in Colombia, that was COP16 on biodiversity in October of this year, and Brazil next year is the host of COP30. Several organizations evaluate the COPs as scenarios very distant from the civil society, where in addition to the lack of condition for participation related to the need to funding to attend, or access restrictions such as limited accreditation, and difficulties to democratize technical language and knowledge. However, we recognize that the COPs motivate the mobilization of peoples and communities around the historical demands for the construction of real solutions based on climate, environmental, and social justice, and not on false solutions that give continuity to the extractive system and exacerbate inequality. These are important spaces to make articulation viable and to plan long-range actions that really motivate transformation from the grassroots. The last COP16 on biodiversity in Colombia represent the beginning of the construction of a popular environmental agenda of organizations and social movements in Colombia, in Latin America region too, but in the world finally. It represents much more than a formal negotiation scenario. Although COP16, like COP29, had a strong presence and influence of companies, financial institutions, polluting industries, and conservationist organizations, it also means the mobilization of people, movements, and communities who demand the explicit recognition of their identity, of the work they have done to take care of the territories as a political commitment to guarantee life in the world, and that they oppose the false solutions based on the market that only prolongs and worsens the crisis. Although the COPs have not brought about major change in the understanding of the crisis and its solutions, they have led to the articulation between social movements, which is key to advancing in this struggle for climate, environmental, social, economic, and gender justice. It is important to provide real conditions for participation, and it's important that the host countries, decision makers, and negotiators listen actively and are able to meet these demands, as it is their responsibility to attend to this mobilization. It is necessary to guarantee public financing and the development of robust public policies to confront this crisis and strengthen the solutions that come from the local level with the active participations of social movements. The solution cannot come from those who cause the crisis, the climate crisis and the environmental crisis, but the social crisis too, nor can it come from the carbon market or the biodiversity market, which is reality represent a debt generated by international financial institutions, private banks, and profiting companies. It demands the recognition of the existence of a historical and ecological debt that requires urgent actions of reparation. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Nemo?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, here we are in COP.
Closer.
Hello. Good, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Here we are in COP29, and already we're looking forward to another COP. Now, the question would be, what have we achieved 29 years down the road? The road to COP30 already looks broken, and so we could also say that maybe we have a few months to repair the broken road and get ready for COP30. Now, for COP30 to really make any mark, it has to be a space where the voices of communities are heard, where voices of victims of climate change take the center stage. But we're not seeing the indication that that is happening at this particular COP, because even on the day of global action, the protest was muted. Nobody could say a word, or that without the, snap fingers. Now, what will happen at Belém? Would there be space for that? Well, that is a question for all of us to think about. But I believe that we need to mobilize, work from our various grassroots positions, and ensure that the voices of victims of carbon violence across the world is heard at COP30. Carbon violence is being perpetrated at every oil well across the global south especially. It's being perpetrated in carbon credit designated forests, blue carbon, green carbon, whatever kind of carbon. All these are bringing violence to communities who depend on forests. And we can't go to the Amazon and begin to amplify the same problems. And so it's time for us to really build with the ground to ensure that the voices of the victims are heard. The COP has been a very interesting space. Over the years, I've had the unfortunate situation of attending quite a number of COPs, and I see that every year we're going down the wrong direction. Now, since Paris Agreement, we're running on a nationally determined contributions to solve a global problem, and we see that it's not working. The emissions gap report shows that it's not working. The financial gap report shows it's not working. No billion, no million, no trillion is on the plate. And now we have the new collective quantitative goals, spreading the burden to the victims and ensuring that those who ought to do the most do nothing and just get everybody to say, well, I'm not at fault. The fault is because this country, that poor country is not contributing. What is new collective quantitative goal? We know the historical responsibilities, and we're always looking for ways to diffuse responsibility and avoid taking charge and doing what needs to be done. And so what we believe should be done is not to talk about decarbonization, but talk about depetrolization. Let's keep the keep the crude oil in the soil, keep the coal in the hole, and let the tar sands remain in the land and not come out to pollute and create problems. It's time to Yasunize the world. And I believe that Yasuni is not too far from Brazil, even though it's in Ecuador. So we mobilize and join all our communities, stand together. It's time to move forward and not move backwards through the COPs.
Thank you, Nimo. Yes, it's time to stand together, find alternative space, and talk more of real solutions, real alternatives. So finally, but none the least, Maureen Santos from FACE, Brazil. Maureen?
Thank you. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and also talk to you about this road to Belém. We're very excited. First of all, after 3 COPs stuck inside this official space, you can occupy the streets again. So this already, it's a very important moment, so we can mobilize as our comrades bring the topics and not only dialogue with this official space and make pressures about the issues like climate finance, but not just only climate finance. What do you want about this climate finance? You want a climate justice finance. You don't want any more debt. You don't want climate debt. So when you talk about climate finance, you need to say which kind of finance you really want. When you talk about climate action, is every climate action is good? When you talk about environmental integrity, when they debate here that's only related to the double accounting, is that or is it about environmental integrity? Also, our environmental integrity, it's about our forests, our diversity and our forest protection, our biodiversity and common goods protection. Understand that doesn't have a forest without people. The forest has people inside. It's not only the far biodiversity that you can understand that's other kind of non-human species. So all of these need to change. You need to reassume our concepts and bring them to face the other very, very isolated, or I can say that, no colorful concepts without political debate. And all this because you really believe that you can do this together. You have to have a strategy for inside, but you have also to do a strategy related to the Brazilian presidency agenda. We have to have our strategy for outside, for the People's Summit, that now we are already starting to preparation, this process that will be launched in Belém, but the idea is to keep after that. Because the People's Summit, it's already a historical process that the movements, the social movements, the grassroots, the territories, the unions, the NGOs, they can come together with a common agenda. We really need to be together. We need to have a space that can consolidate and face the fragmentation that CSOs are facing right now. Around the world, if you look, the extreme right is very unique. They are very organized. They are very, very, very organized. And you can saw that all over our continent. So we really need to keep back our strength and put together and mobilize so we can do this road to Belém together. And I hope I can see you all in this process, especially, of course, the CLC organizations and the social movements grassroots, because we have to build this and build a process that can go beyond Belém. Belém is not our final goal. Belém is a part of the process of building movement and can do a transformation related to this world and against this climate crisis and the civilization crisis they are facing right now. So hope you can see you in the Climate Summit and in Belém. Thank you.
Maureen, anything more that you can add on the Climate Summit, Maureen? Anything that you want to add on the summit itself? People's Summit itself? Yeah, a bit of it. We have some time. Yeah.
Okay. So the People's Summit process, we started already 1 year and some months in Brazil. And since the Climate Summit in New York, we start to internationalize. Right now, we launched our website tomorrow to how so people can access the information. And we start to launch in the working groups already. Last week here, we had a meeting that to talk about that. There is in the internet a form that the organizations can fulfill and be entering these working groups. After this press conference, we can talk about that if there is some organization that's not already in the mail list. And the idea is to create a common agenda for next year so we can stay accumulating in this process, not only in the Latin American, in Pan-Amazonia, but all over the world. Because everybody really needs to look that not every organization can be in Belém or all, but you really need to think about how can you mobilize globally at the same time, and think about a chain of our proposals that can be occupying all these spaces that you need to make the change.
Thank you, Maureen. So if you need much more information on this People's Summit that is going to be held in Belém, Maureen is there after the press conference. Do meet her. While we have some few minutes left, we are opening the floor now for any kind of questions, seeking information, clarification from you. Please. Any questions? Yeah.
It's Masato Kimura, Japanese journalist. If possible, could I ask about Paris Agreement Article 6.4? What kind of impact on the forest do you expect? Yeah.
Good afternoon, Roland Gam, Rosa Luxemburg. Two questions. I attended the EU press conference earlier, and it is very clear from their statements that very little is going to come of it. And so the NCQG that we're talking about, so more or less COP29 is a failure. Do we need to keep doing this? Because already you can hear that BP and Shell are ramping up production. So that's the first thing. The second question, amongst yourself, has there been discussions, because I see that the Congo Basin is completely absent from this network, and looking at the declaration on your website. And the third question, looking to Belém, is there efforts to do something beyond just the agreements that are going to be made within the COP framework? Because it is very clear from what all of you said that if we need to achieve success, we need to break away from this paradigm. Thank you.
About your question of 6.4, what kinds of impacts on forests? The 6.4, it's like, in the beginning, it was like a copying glue of the Paris Agreement, CDM, the Clean Development Mechanisms. And here, they get worse, in a lot of reasons. Get worse because the developing countries that wish to have this mechanism, to have opportunity to receive climate finance or transference of technology, they really be outside of this club. The rules get so hard for them to participate, and there is so many consulting that they need to go there to achieve the point of the project so that the money goes to the consulting. At the same time, the 6.4, they keep officialize the voluntary carbon markets. And this is really bad because they keep inputting a process that is not really good regulated, and they create an official regulation inside the UNFCCC, and this is pushing this marketing to the territories where there is this forest. And for the end, we really believe that this will impact more the forest, because these projects, they really don't look for the indigenous people and the traditional community. They look at these communities as a service, as individuals that can offer a kind of services. So this idea of the selling carbon inside that can be used to flexibilize the implementation of the NDCs for other countries, especially the North countries, that they should cut their emissions, this creates a lot of kind of not only distractions, but oppressions that's only creating more impact in the territories of the global South. And for one more time, this kind of the process you create are more responsibilities for the global South to achieve cut emissions instead of global North can really do their job.
Nimo, I think to end with his questions.
All right, just a quick response. I fully agree that the new collective quantitative goal is set up to scuttle the COP. Because the COP is running in so many directions, there's very little way to bring cohesion in terms of climate finance. So it's being complicated to frustrate everyone. That appears to be the method. And then with regard to the Congo Basin, I think, Congo Basin is really a very challenged area, not just about the forest being decimated, but also for the critical minerals being mined in the same area. So it's an area of work, and certainly to mobilize those people on the road to Belém.
Yeah, I will take a question of the gentleman about of Congo Basin. This declaration of Baku, it was our first declaration of Global Forest Coalition, and we focused on this region, on Eastern Europe, Caucasus, and Central Asia. But for Belém, we plan that other regions, Africa, Latin America, and Asia, also will make their regional declarations towards Belém. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre, and I hope your questions have been more or less answered. And we know that whatever we say, whatever happen, we cannot leave this place out to the corporates to do whatever they want to do, and they are doing. So it's our space also. The UN space is our space, people's space. So we will defend that, but we will also find alternative space to speak whatever we want to speak. Thank you.